Hi there. Can you prove that God exists? Can you prove me wrong? Since I've published my video several months ago about 7 proofs that God does not exist, I have received very many messages from theists. Many of them are just hate mail. People even don't try to prove or disprove any point. Or sometimes they try to argue, and that sounds ridiculous. For example, they say, God is very simple, mind is very simple. What do you mean, guys? Meanwhile, with help of my subscribers, I came up with additional arguments why any God does not exist, most probably. So let's continue counting. We've counted 7 and now proof 8, cosmological, God's universe. To have created our universe, God must operate in at least as many dimensions as the universe being created. In our case, it's 4 dimensions, 3 spatial and 1 time dimension. If God exists in some kind of non-space or non-time as theists declare it, then God simply doesn't have the necessary degrees of freedom to operate and to create some dimensions. So, there must be a universe for God, some godly universe with at least 4 dimensions. If you claim that God is out of our universe, then you're claiming additional universe. Then you're faced with the question, where did that universe come from? If you just postulate that in that universe all there is that God, then you come to a pantheistic God of Spinoza and Einstein. But then why should you even care to declare a separate universe which we cannot observe, even touch, or somehow interact with? You can in the same way declare God within our universe. But then there is a contradiction, because this would imply self-creation. God would have to self-create. So this universe thing leads me to conclude that there is no God, because simply in terms of the dimensions needed to operate, it's incoherent and it's irreconcilable. Proof number 9. Theistic, anthropomorphic gods. Gods of all major religions are portrayed jealous, angry, and insecure. Like ancient tyrant rulers, they demand obedience, worship, and most of all, they demand believing in them. Would an existent, powerful God be so concerned with you just believing in him? Would he make this the main measure of your worthiness? As Einstein said, gods are so human-like, with all human emotions, that it becomes obvious that they are created by man. Gods are created by man, not men are created by God. Proof number 10, cosmological, something from nothing, part 1. Theists insist that the universe came into being from nothing. What is nothing exactly? True nothingness cannot be defined in a meaningful way. There is nothing useful about nothingness. And here's why. For example, theists say that vacuum is not nothingness, because there is still time passing by, and there is space with this vacuum. How about this? If you postulate that God created the universe out of nothing, then it's also not nothingness, because there is already God, right? There is no nothingness, true nothingness. So if you accept that there is or there was such thing as nothingness, then you are forced to accept that there was no God at all, complete nothingness. So there is an apparent contradiction. Either your idea of creating things from nothing, or the universe from nothing, is not correct, because there is no such thing as nothingness. Or if you insist that there is nothingness, then you confirm that there was no God, and God couldn't be eternal. Eternal God and nothingness are mutually exclusive. Proof number 11. Cosmological. Something from nothing, part 2. The world is governed by relativistic and quantum laws, which are hard to understand and comprehend unless you grew up with the knowledge of those laws. You simply get used to these laws. You don't really deeply understand them in a common sense. There are no laws of nature that require existence of nothingness. No physical laws, no mathematical laws. It's simply a concept from those times when people couldn't get their heads around things that are very difficult to understand and comprehend. There is always something. There is vacuum with quantum fluctuation. There is singularity with infinite density. Nothingness is irrelevant in our world. It's just a concept which doesn't have any relation to reality. Proof number 12. Scriptural, primitive thinking. The Bible and the Quran and other religious books show that they were written by ignorant, ancient people who couldn't have their heads around deeply complex things that we've just discussed. The Bible and the Quran are actually describing flat earth. They are describing solid dome of sky separating sky water from earth waters. Moon, for example, is a source of light. There are deep sea springs. Sun literally sets into muddy waters. Creation of night and day before creation of the sun. Christians and Muslims cite their scriptures as the evidence for God's existence. And this is the kind of evidence we are discussing. With the abundance of contradictions and primitive mistakes in scriptures, proving to be wrong by science and by simple observations, all those things clearly show that all these books are man-made. They have nothing to do with being inspired by any all-knowing gods. Proof number 13. Quantum, omniscience versus Heisenberg. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is one of the fundamentals of quantum physics, the most thoroughly tested scientific theories. It's not possible to know at the same time the momentum and coordinates of a particle. You either know how fast it moves, or you know where the particle is, not both. We can measure either particle's location or momentum at any given time. Omniscient God must know location and momentum of every particle at every moment, because otherwise there would be things that our omniscient God doesn't know. That's by definition not an omniscient God anymore. So, omniscient God would constantly violate the proven fundamental laws of physics, of quantum mechanics, and the world would not behave the same way as it behaves now. So, this uncertainty principle alone and our measurements prove that omniscient God is not possible. It proves that any omniscient God does not exist. All omniscient gods must be dismissed. Closing remarks. I am looking for evidence for God's existence. I am open to new ideas, new facts, to new proofs. Please provide them to me. Please provide me experiments. Please provide me observations, formulas, serious papers, serious studies confirming any hypothesis of God. I would like to think that there is afterlife and there is all-loving Creator. I really strive to find Him. But the more I see, the more I analyze and think so far, the more I find evidence for the contrary. I'm afraid of death, but not enough to fool myself into accepting any unsupported claims, any unsupported fantasies about gods or afterlife. Please check out my other videos and subscribe. Peace. I definitely need to have a little break and read this stuff again.